Oh my
Wow.
God. There is no soap here. There's like a straight line.
It's boiling water poured over an open festering wound.
I'm dirty.
Okay.
Dawn and I divorced. Like, oh my God. Get me started.
Well,
okay,
now that Chris is already riled up and we haven't even started the episode yet.
Oh, but I'm sure we have a.
But we really have, because the mic is already recording and things are already saved for posterity at this point because our mouths have been running.
Clock in, scrub up, and join us behind the red line. You're listening to First Case, a perioperative podcast bringing you exciting interviews, engaging discussions, and innovative solutions that are changing the way patients receive surgical care. Each episode, we talk to frontline staff, perioperative leadership, and nursing entrepreneurs from across the country as they share their stories, experience, and expertise on the industry we love. From the back table to the boardroom, from wheels in to wheels out, we tackle the real-life issues affecting the OR. Whether you're tuning in for surgical service education or inspiration, we're glad you're here. And now, it's time to roll back and start the first case.
On this week's episode of First Case, Chris and I are continuing our conversation around answering those questions, how do I? And there's a lot of questions. In the first episode, we tackled a few of them, and really more of the idea of how do I ask questions and not feel stupid? How do I ask questions and not get made fun of? And then we also talked to Dr. Pierce McCarty, and how do we interact with our surgeons in a way that they'll actually talk to us? And those are legitimate questions and things that we obviously want to know. And then we think about now for this week's episode, we're really going to look at a very specific question. How do I learn to scrub? And that's different for a lot of people, depending on the situation you're in, depending on your facility. And Chris has a soapbox as high as Mount Everest when it comes to this topic. So Chris is going to be our expert guest as I throw questions at her and also my own experience, just to watch her eyes roll into the back of her head while we talk about this topic. But first, before we jump into all of that, as we look at that question, how do I learn to scrub? The obvious answer is go to scrub school, right? And so I'm curious, what does that look like as you are a surgical tech educator? So if somebody decided they wanted to go to school to learn how to be a scrub, what does that look like for them?
Look, the good news is that there are so many options. And I hate saying the acronym, but COVID. COVID made us realize that we could do it differently. When I went to school, and by the way, like, I'll climb off my soapbox for just 2 seconds, but I was on the job trained. And thank God, within like 3 months, I realized that I was going to kill somebody and I needed to go to school. But if you don't know that, or someone has given you the like crazy LSD dream that you don't need to be trained in order to do this, then like there are different options. But when I was in school, like I had to go to school Monday through Friday, and it was an all day thing. And basically my life paused, and I was a single mom. Like I was a single mom, and it was awful, but I made it through. And so I know it can be done. Right. But what we've learned, what software and Teams and Zoom and so many other things have taught us, that there are options. So it depends on your lifestyle, but know that there is a way to do it, right? So I have a hybrid program. Many of my campuses, those students are on campus for 5 days a week. My particular campus, I have students that, bless their heart, they come from different states just to come to my program. And I'm going to get emotional but
take a deep breath.
So we have online, we have in person, we have open labs, we have scheduled one-on-ones. It's a very unique way of doing it. And there are different approaches throughout the entire country. So do your research, but fly by the night. Like, I can learn in 6 weeks. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. Like, I saw YouTube or, oh, this chick on TikTok, like, showed me a thing. I got this. And then go into an operating room and put your, naive hands on the patient. No, that's not how we do it. So there are rules of engagement. That's like telling your 13-year-old right now who plays Grand Theft Auto and then giving him the keys to your BMW and telling him he's good enough to get on the daggum road.
I know. Well, and tangentially, not just that example, but I had an example a couple weeks ago where a nurse who works in the clinic with one of our orthopedic surgeons, obviously the surgeon is in the OR on Fridays, and so their clinic doesn't have much to do. She's a nurse. We'll just get her to come down to the OR on Fridays and she can work in his room instead of working in the clinic with him. No OR experience, no background in the OR, but she's his clinic nurse, so she should be able to circulate his cases for him. And this idea that we can just teach her how to circulate one day a week when she comes and she can just learn specifically how to do his cases is not the way that we learn to safely take care of our patients. And so when we think about scrubbing, we think about everything that goes into aseptic technique, into protecting our patients, into preventing contamination. How important. I would almost call you a gatekeeper. I think that's a really good, you are that gatekeeper at the back table of sterility and safety. And so not understanding fully the depth of your role and really knowing the ins and outs of what it is you're doing puts everybody at risk. And so we don't want that. And so we want safe, competent people taking care of our patients. That's what I would want if I was the one having surgery.
Here's the deal with the circulating is that some of our cases are less than an hour long, and the list of things that you will have to document appropriately and quickly, like, that's not a window of learning opportunities. Like, and if you don't get all of that right and it's not time stamped appropriately in the electronic health record, that can have long-standing implications.
Yeah. Well, so and everything that goes into patient positioning, all of the safety that goes into positioning correctly, prepping correctly, getting everything that you need. It's just the overall knowledge of what this case is we're doing, how it affects the patient, what could go wrong, what do I need, what might I need, what do I think I'm going to need later, like all of those things. And so I understand also because, like I said before, I chose to learn to scrub because I needed to be able to know how to scrub because I felt like, well, one, it would make me a better circulator, but also I had staff that I was in charge of and I couldn't help them. But I wasn't able to go to a program because I was working full time as a nurse. So there are times when we do learn to scrub and we're just learning on the job. And we want to do the very best we can, no matter how we're learning. But let's go back because I think as we follow this circuitous train of thought,
we're squirreling.
It's okay. I'm a squirrel on cocaine lots of the time when I'm having conversations. And that's good. It's just some people might struggle to follow. But if I'm a student and if I want to go to a surgical tech school, we're talking maybe a hybrid option where I do some online, do some in person, right? Or I go to a course where I'm going to school 4 or 5 days a week, right? That, like, how long are those courses generally?
Yeah. So it's an associate degree program. So associate degree was mandated by ARC and KHEP by January 2024. So if you are in an accredited program, and that's key, is make sure that you are going to an accredited program. That way that you know that what you are being taught is the correct thing. So that's typically going to be an 18-month to a 24-month program. Lab is usually about 6 months-ish. So you need to know that and go to the admissions of that campus, call, do your research before you enroll. That way you can plan your life out, see if that works with your, work-life balance, right? But all of those things you can do before you ever enroll. And it's okay to ask, like, go to several different colleges out there. But that's typically what it looks like, and lab can be many days a week, short hours. It can be 1 day a week, all day, but it's a hands-on program because muscle memory is key. And this is what I tell people. Do you ever drive home late at night or drive home when you're tired and like
you don't know how you got there.
Right? Okay, maybe we shouldn't say.
Okay, I wasn't drunk, but I have gotten home before
speaking,
and not
right?
knowing how I got there.
Exactly. But you don't remember like the last 3 or 4 turns, you pull into the driveway. We've all been on call and it just happened, like you blinked and you got there. That is muscle memory, right? Or you know where to go when you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got to go get a drink. You know where your kitchen is. Like all of that is muscle memory, and repetition is the only way. It's practicing perfectly, because when you're in a high stress situation, when your adrenaline is running, right? Your adrenergic system is kicking in. That your brain is not going to be your friend. Your muscle memory, your body is going to know what to do. That happens when your patient is circling the drain, when all, holy heck breaks out into the operating room. And the only way that your body is going to know perfect technique and not going to contaminate is if you develop that muscle memory before you ever got into the operating room. Like in the OR is not the day to try to figure that out. And so you have to be able to be present. You have to practice. Like a lot of it's memorization. How many instruments are there just in ortho?
Oh, I don't. Oh, geez.
Exactly.
I don't know.
So now you got to right. So, but also I need you to remember all the general instrumentation plus cardiovascular.
Oh, and the
plus
vascular
ENT,
stuff in case there's a
OMS,
problem in ortho. Yeah.
Right. Like I need you to remember all of these things, because if you're in an accredited program, you have to do a minimum of 120 cases. If you're in an NBS TSA, which we're going to talk about later in the season, right? But so if depending on what certification you are trying to test for, you have to do a certain amount of surgical cases. You have to do them across a certain amount of surgical procedures. Well, if you're ever going to first scrub any of those procedures, you have to know what the surgeon's asking for. And that's just instrumentation, not to mention all the supplies, not to mention the anatomy, the physiology. And then if you want to understand anything coming out of my mouth, you also have to understand the medical terminology. That's a lot of studying. So
it is. So I've got a question, because
time management.
Oh yeah, time management for sure. As I jump right in and not manage your time well. So you bring up a good one about instruments, because that's a question people ask all the time. If you're in a program, obviously there's time dedicated to learning those instruments and to understanding trays and putting them together, I'm assuming, and all this stuff. But if you're learning on the job, you are at the back table and they're like, that's a mallet. This is some suture scissors. This is that, and some of them make sense, right? A mallet's easy. That's why it came to mind. Duh, you're not going to miss a mallet, right? But some of them aren't so easy, and they don't come naturally. And if you're just scrubbed in there, standing, watching, so you can see what they're doing, the case is going so fast. You might commit 1, maybe 2 to memory, but it's not going to be all of them. And you're certainly not going to remember what that stringer looked like when it's time to go back. So then what is your best recommendation for someone trying to learn their instruments that's not in a program? How do I learn all the different instruments? What do I do?
Man, there are great resources out there. There are online resources. Amazon lives at my house. So if for some reason Amazon has time to go to anyone else's house other than mine, there are great surgical instrument books out there. There are pocket-sized instrument books out there.
Like pocket cards type things?
Yeah,
that's cool.
Absolutely. There are online resources for instrumentation. If anyone's trying to learn instruments, I will share anything and everything, because it's more important to me that you're safe for the patient than it is that it's mine. So reach out to me. I will share any and everything that I have.
And how can they reach out to you if they want to learn more?
cblevins@south.edu.
That's C, B as in boy, Levins at south.edu.
Yes.
Chris is an excellent resource.
On LinkedIn.
Yeah, find her on LinkedIn. Yeah, for sure.
I will share anything with anybody. If you want a gowning and gloving video, if you want to know anything, please, because I would rather you do it right than just come to my program. I don't care. I just want our patients to be well taken care of. So, but there are so many resources out there, but guess what? It's going to take time. You have to go. Also, your sterile processing department, that's their job. When you're not on the clock, if you're not scrubbed in, go down to sterile processing. They know every single thing about every single instrument.
Well, and they got a count sheet right
facility.
there with the tray. Like, ask to help put trays together. When you've got to match and put, you're going to learn a lot as you just check the boxes.
So well. Yeah, go be a volunteer. Like, go help your sterile processing.
Sterile processing's never going to say no. They don't ever have enough help.
No, absolutely. Although I used to get told no. When I was like, I'll come help wrap, they're like, no.
Why did they tell you no?
Oh, because I suck. I was horrible at wrapping.
I never wrapped trays. I never did that. I just would I would just put the instruments after they came out and they were clean and all that stuff. I would just do the count sheet and check it all and make sure it was all there. And I think I got on the sterile processing manager's nerves a little bit because I'm like, I don't know what this is. What is this? And so, but how are you going to learn, right? And at least I was putting a tray together.
Yeah.
And it was right when I was done. I didn't put the lid on it till I had everything checked off correctly. So I knew it was done.
You'd be my favorite. Yeah. But there are just resources, but also just having the willingness to learn it is huge. But you have to be careful because there's so much regionality. Like, and Dr. So-and-so calls it his big mama. Well, guess what? That's probably not the proper name for it.
Yeah, neither's Big Ugly, and neither's, Belly Cobra, and all these other.
A Big Ugly is actually a Ferris Smith.
I know that.
That's not,
Sorry, I guess
right, but no, we hear that all the time. Yeah. Big Ugly. But guess what? If you're getting your certifying exam, Big Ugly's not going to
get you any points.
No, So, yeah, it's crazy. But also, the more you learn the instrumentation, the more confident you're going to feel when you're behind the Mayo. The more technique you learn, the better you're going to understand when technique has been compromised. But also, at the end of the day, when something's not working correctly, when things are not going well, the surgeon turns to you. And if you don't have the answer, that's a really awful feeling to have. So the more education you can have, the better. But like we've said in other episodes, know the people who have the answers and reach out. But also, when someone reaches out to you, don't be a jerk.
Amen. Yes. Help them.
Yeah.
We are all literally, it is an overused phrase at this point, and I almost hate to say it, but dadgum, we're all in this together.
Yes.
We all have a shared goal of safe surgery, patient safety, getting our patients in and out alive and well and better than we got them, right? So why would we not give that knowledge to other people to help them do well? Once again, I think I said this on the first episode, but let's not gatekeep it. Let's not hoard it. It's not going to just make me look better so you can look stupid. It's going to just hurt our patient at the end of the day. So if you know something, teach somebody something, help them out, right? And I think the instrument one is really good. And also from a leadership standpoint, and this is just, I don't know, this and $1.50 will buy you a Coke. But as somebody who has been in leadership, I've managed an OR, I've been a team leader for a large orthopedic program. Like, I've been in charge of people a lot. And the ones who are motivated to go to sterile processing and go learn, the ones who will go when their cases are done and scrub into another case so that they can learn more, who will spend their time learning and getting better, and not just sitting in the break room till it's time to clock out, or just leaving early, and then complaining when they don't know something or they don't have their hours or whatnot. We see all of that. And those of us in leadership, you might think that your people in leadership are completely detached and they don't know what's going on. And some of them don't. 100%. I know that. I know some of them do not. But those of us who are in the OR, who see what our staff are doing, who know the ones who are going to, or we hear about the ones who've gone to sterile processing and helped, or who are showing motivation, it speaks volumes for you and your work ethic and for how willing you are to learn on your own so that you can be the best employee that you can be. Because that also is going to tell us, okay, so you're willing to put the time in on your own after cases to go learn something new. Probably means you're also willing to keep up with the latest information, that you are committed to a lifelong learning, to your career, to bettering yourself. And you're going to be an employee who is dependable when it comes to, we know that we know your stuff, and you've demonstrated that by your behavior and activity. And that's just something to tuck away, that it does get noticed. It does get observed. Now, I guess the flip side is, if you work too hard, people say, don't work too hard, because then they'll just make you do all the cases, right? And I don't want to go down that rabbit hole, but we do notice it. And we are aware of the people who are trying and the people who are committed to learning.
Well, and on that note, what I would say is, if you are in administration and you see those experts, like, I would never profess to be an educator for our perioperative nursing field. Like, I do not have your knowledge in your field. But that being said, I think that we are seeing more and more hospital systems that are taking the knowledge that surgical technologists have and making surgical technology educators. Because in this technology, in with the supplies that we have, and the instrumentation, and in the specialties that we have, our field is becoming extremely specialized, just like y'all's are. And so I think that if you see someone like that in this field, then it's a clinical ladder opportunity. Like, it is, nursing does not have the same training as surgical technologists. So if you see a surgical technologist is taking advantage of all of these opportunities and that is really becoming a leader, give them an opportunity to grow and to advance up the chain and make them an educator. Because not only are you giving advancement opportunities for your surge techs, becoming a lead, becoming a coordinator, that kind of thing, but also you may provide better education for that surgical technology field, and therefore you may catch things that were being done incorrectly before it does real damage that someone who wasn't trained in that area may not have. Because, we've said it before, like, I don't think anybody comes into anywhere in healthcare wanting to do damage. I think it's just sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and you end up doing damage, or processes are screwed up, and that's how we do patient harm.
Yeah. And I think that is one of the things that I see. I've been in a couple of facilities, not calling any one facility out, but I've been in a couple where our surgical techs were on the job trained. And you know what? We had some phenomenal ones. One of the girls who taught me to scrub was on the job trained. She was the best ever. I mean, superb, but she'd also been taught well. And one of the things that we run into when we deal with, or when we are looking at on the job training, is that what knowledge got passed on, right? How did they get taught? And it's not like it's a consistent curriculum like you have at a school, but it's like, well, you were taught by Jane, who was taught by Sam, who was taught by Bob, and Bob did all of this way. And so this is how we do it, but it's not necessarily correct. And like in the instance of this one scrub tech, she was taught so good. And you didn't set a foot out of line in her room. She was phenomenal. And then I've seen the flip side where scrubs were taught by another scrub who kind of did things okay, but kind of okay. And maintaining aseptic technique is not the same.
Look, they didn't understand the why. Like, if you're told this is okay and this isn't, but you're not told why it's okay, then you're never going to understand why it's not.
And those behaviors carried on. So it's like, this scrub said, you didn't have to take off jewelry if you wanted to scrub in, or it was, the below the back table, they did not ever teach the concept that below the surface of the table was unsterile, or it's okay to sit down and stand up and sit down and stand up when it's not. And those are not always the lessons. And these are just a few examples, but those are not always the lessons that get passed on when you're depending on tribal knowledge to pass down everything that needs to be learned in scrubbing. So I've seen it both ways, and I don't want anybody to walk away thinking that, oh, you were on the job trained, you suck. Nobody is saying that at all. The risk of not being taught everything, though, like you would be in a program, is real. But knowing that there are things you don't know and knowing that there's more to learn, I think is ultimately what brings us to the, okay, I can be teachable. I don't know everything. I can learn more, and there's resources out there for me to learn more how to scrub, to learn better ways or best practice. And so that also leads into nurses too, who are just being thrown into it. What resources are out there so that all of us who scrub can continue to make our practice better? Where do we go to find more information?
There's so many, right? I mean, you and I were just at AORN. And next week, I'm about to go to AST. And that's why certification is so incredibly important, because once you have maintain, once you are certified, then you have to maintain that certification. And we have ample opportunities at a state level, at local levels. I mean, Good Grief, our podcasts are CE qualified in many instances, but there are always opportunities to learn, because that's the amazing thing about medicine, is that we are constantly evolving and research is being done so that, yes, 10 years ago, ABC may have been the best technique, but guess what? Now we're finding out it's DEF. And we should be able to critique ourselves and to evolve with the research and with what we're learning, and to constantly be perfecting our technique. But if you don't put the effort in, if you don't go to these conferences, and I don't mean go to the conference just to go to the party. Like, you have to actually go to the conference.
Go to learn.
Go to learn, because if you're that self-absorbed and you think you already know everything just because your doctor does it this way and you know that doctor, then you are missing out on this growth trajectory that could elevate your career, that could elevate your mind, and that could elevate that patient's care. And there's always an opportunity to be a part of the next groundbreaking procedure, the next groundbreaking, pathology. I mean, why wouldn't you want to be a part of that? And all it takes is just opening your mind and your heart and being willing to put in a little extra effort. And we could all use that, but so could our patients. And you'd want your mom, your dad, your kid.
Or me, if I'm the one on the table, right?
Yeah, Melanie, I will do that for you.
You can come scrub any case that I have. I will let you do it. But that's a good way to bring this episode to a close. The big advice here, yes, I don't think we specifically answered the question, how do I learn to scrub? Because it's too big of a question to answer on a 30-minute podcast. But there are good takeaways to this conversation. If you have opportunity and availability to go to a surgical tech program, that's where you're going to get the most in-depth education, because these are the experts and they are the ones who teach all of the proper technique. You might be learning on the job though, whether you are someone hired to be a scrub tech and they are teaching you on the job, or you are a nurse who has a pulse and wears scrubs and now you're going to learn to scrub. And we know it happens. And so take advantage of the resources that are available to you, whether it's through the Association of Surgical Technologists, whether it's through reaching out to Chris and asking her to point you in better directions, different approved videos that will teach you the right way of doing things. But ultimately, don't be resistant to learning. Whether you are a new scrub and you've got your whole career ahead of you, or you are someone who has been scrubbing for 30 years, there's still going to be something new that you don't know. And if you're resistant to learning, you're going to end up doing something wrong, just because the way we did it before is not necessarily the way we do it now. So be open to learning, don't resist it, and take advantage of all of the resources available to you to make yourself the best scrub that you can be, no matter what situation you find yourself in. Once again, if you have any questions, if you want more information, because this is such a broad topic, reach out to me, reach out to Chris. You can find us both on LinkedIn. I mean, if you reach out to me, I'm going to send you Chris's way anyway, but you can also reach out to Chris personally at cblevins@south.edu, and she can also point you in some better directions that way. But as we come to a close, that is going to do it for this week's episode. Stay tuned next week, because we're actually going to dive into the CST exam next week and learn more about studying for that exam. So
it's a booger.
We're excited, and make sure you join us. But that's going to do it for today. So on behalf of Chris, myself, and our whole team, thanks for listening to this week's episode of First Case.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of First Case. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to First Case on your favorite podcast app, or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for First Case in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts, and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@firstcasemedia.com. We look forward to hearing from you.